Matthew Walter. I'm an assistant professor at the Toyota Technological Institute at Chicago, or TTIC, and my focus is robot perception, including natural language understanding.
Very cool. And what's your role on this expedition?
So in this cruise, what I'm working on is a shared autonomy framework to enable assistive manipulation in unstructured environments, in particular underwater unstructured environments. So shared autonomy is a framework that it incorporates a robot in the loop in collaboration with a human to perform tasks that would be difficult, dangerous, or prohibitive for people to do on their own. So in this case, what we're using shared autonomy for is to improve the efficiency and safety of underwater manipulation.
Cool. So in every sci-fi movie I've ever seen, and there's a robot or a computer, humans are talking to it like it's a person.
Mm-hmm.
And we seem to take that for granted, I think. So you're sort of working towards that goal.
Exactly, yeah. So on the shared autonomy side of things, what we're looking at doing is enabling more quote-unquote natural interfaces by which people can communicate with robots. And really the model that we've taken is sort of in this case, in the case of underwater science, trying to emulate how a scientist and an ROV pilot interact. So now the idea is to enable the robot, the ROV with the arm, to effectively understand the communication from the scientist. So the scientist can talk to the ROV and the arm just as they would to the ROV pilot, using free-form natural language. And you're right, we take that for advantage. I mean, it's very difficult for a robot to understand what we mean because robots typically think about their environment in a very different way than people do. And people have been looking at this for some time. Traditionally, it's involved rule-based methods. So we've constrained the amount that what we can say to a robot to make the robot's task easier, effectively us adapting to the robot. And the focus here is to go the other way around, have the robot to adapt to people, again, by allowing the robot to understand free-form language.
Okay, so walk me through one of those interactions. Give me an example of a task that the scientist would say to the ROV pilot, and then how that would be different with your system.
Okay, so now what you might imagine is the ROV is on the seafloor and you want to take a sample, either with a slurp gun or a push core. And typically what the scientist will do is indicate where to the ROV they would like them to take a sample. And then the pilot is going to control the arm to acquire that sample. And that sounds at a high level very simple, but it's extremely challenging for even highly trained pilots, even for very experienced pilots, for a number of reasons. So one is the lack of situational awareness. So you're staring at one or more camera feeds, possibly with some delay, trying to control an arm in an environment that you don't fully understand. So you don't know exactly where the robot is, what's around the robot. Even then, now you're trying to control a robot whose morphology, whose kinematics are different from a human arm. So it's very unintuitive for people to control, and so as a result, even with experienced pilots, takes 10 times longer than it should to control this arm. And that, again, 10 times longer, it takes a lot more time. That affects the amount of science that you could perform. So the focus instead, what we would like to do is, again, allow the scientist to take a sample and indicate, say, by clicking on a screen or using gaze tracking, indicate where they would like the robot to take a sample. And the robot is very good at, as opposed to a human, understanding its environment, where obstacles are, where it is relative to the vehicle so it doesn't collide. It's very good at figuring out if it wants to get the end effector with the slurp gun or the push cord to a particular location, it knows how to plan its motion, again, and plan a motion that is both feasible, i.e. the robot can reach that location, and safe, so collision-free, is not hitting anything in the scene, is not colliding with itself, is not colliding with the vehicle, which you can imagine can be very dangerous, and again, costly. And so now the robot is good at that, and the robot can execute this maneuver. And then key to our framework is that the human is always in the loop. So the robot always defers to the human. And so if the human is, whether it's the ROV pilot or someone else, is not happy with what the robot's doing, they can always take control. Because then, again, safety is key. But now we've taken something that might take 10 minutes to take a sample, and hopefully we can reduce that to, say, a minute. So now that greatly increases the amount of science that can be performed.
That's great. All right, I'll get you back in the control
room.
Great.
Thanks a lot.
Let's go see this in action.